Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We begin today's satsang by offering our salutations to Ramana, who shines as the self in all beings. We begin today's satsang with a prayer which will be chanted by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, that will be followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Revathi Shankar.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय नमो
एकमक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथं हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् ह्यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम् देहं मृण्मयवज्जडात्मकम् अहं बुद्धिर्न तस्यास्त्यतो नाहं तत्तदभावसुप्तिसमये सिद्धात्मसद्भावतः कोऽहं भावयुतः कुतो वरधिया दृष्ट्वात्मनिष्ठात्मना सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं सोऽहं स्फूर्तितया अरुणाचलशिवः पूर्णो विभाति स्वयं। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with the chanting of a few verses from Upadesa Saram. The chanting will be done by Kumari Uma Sripathy.
Namo Ramana. Vayurodhana liyate mana jalapakshiva rodha sadhanam chittavayava चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलका लयविनाशने उभयरोदने लयकतं पुनर्भवति नोऽमृतम् प्राणबन्धना लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तना नाशमेत्यद नष्टमानसो उत्कृष्टयोगिन कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तितिं यत दृश्यवारितं चित्तमात्मना चित्त्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आर्जवात् वृत्तयस्त्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिताः वृत्तयो मनो नित्यहं मन अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वत अयि पतत्यहं निज विचारणम् अहमिनाशभा जहमहं तय स्फुरतिर्स्वयं परमपूर्णसत्। नमो रमण।
Namo Ramana. In this part of the satsang, we have a few Ramananjali offerings. The Ramananjali songs will be offered by Srimati V.Radha. That will be followed by a presentation by Pratibha Sundaresh, then followed by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. And we will conclude the offering of Ramananjali Sangeetam by an offering by Kumari Revathi Shankar.
Namo Ramana to all. Today I will be singing a song written by Sri Sadhu Om Swami. The Kannada translation is by Dr. Sarada. The music is by Srimati Sulochana Natarajan. ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ದೇವಾದಿದೇವಂ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣನೆ ದೇವಾದಿದೇವಂ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಡಿದವರೆಗೆ ಆಶ್ರಯವು ನಿನ್ನ ಅಡಿದವರೆಗೆ ಆಶ್ರಯವು ದಾವರೆಗೆ ಅಡಿದವರೆಗೆ ನಿನ್ನ ಅಡಿದವರೆಗೆ ಆಶ್ರಯವು ಅಡಿಯಿಲ್ಲದೆಯೇ ಗತಿಯಿಲ್ಲವು ಅಡಿಯಿಲ್ಲದೆಯೇ ಗತಿಯಿಲ್ಲವು ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ದಯೆಯೇ ಮೈತಾಳಿ ತೊಲವಿಂದ ದಯೆಯೇ ಮೈತಾಳಿ ತೊಲವಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ತಾಯಂತೆಯೇ ಒಲವಿಂದ ನನ್ನ ತಾಯಂತೆಯೇ ಒಲವಿಂದ ಗುರು ಕೃಪೆ ರಮಣ ಗುರು ಕೃಪೆ ಗುರು ಕೃಪೆ ರಮಣ ಗುರು ಕೃಪೆ ಕರುಣೆಯೇ ತಬ್ಬಿತು ಒಲವಿಂದ ಕರುಣೆಯೇ ತಬ್ಬಿತು ಒಲವಿಂದ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ದೇವಾದಿದೇವ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣನೆ ನೀನಲ್ಲದೆ ಯಾರೋ ಶರಣೆನಗೆ ದೇವಾದಿದೇವ ಶ್ರೀರಮಣನೆ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. I request Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan to offer their Ramananjali Sangeetam.
Guru Ramana Shiva Ee Torunanali Olava Guru Ramana Shiva Ee Torunanali Olava Ratriyali Hagalinali ನೋವಿನಲಿ ನಲಿವಿನಲಿ ರಾತ್ರಿಯಲಿ ಹಗಲಿನಲಿ ನೋವಿನಲಿ ನಲಿವಿನಲಿ ಜನನ ಮರಣಗಳ ನಡುವಿನಲಿ ಜೀವನ ಮಾಲಿನ್ಯ ಜಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಜನನ ಮರಣಗಳ ನಡುವಿನಲಿ ಜೀವನ ಮಾಲಿನ್ಯ ಜಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನೊಂದು ಹೋಗಿಹುದು ಎನ್ನ ಮನ ನೊಂದು ಹೋಗಿಹುದು ನನ್ನ ಮನ ಅದನ್ನು ಕಾಪಾಡು ದೀನವನ ಗುರು ರಮಣ ಶಿವ ನೀ ತೋರು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಲವ ಗುರು ರಮಣ ಶಿವ ನೀ ತೋರು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಲವ ಭಯಗೊಂಡ ಜೀವಕ್ಕೆ ಅಭಯವತ ಅಂತರಂಗದ ಶುದ್ಧಿಯತ ಭಯಗೊಂಡ ಜೀವಕ್ಕೆ ಅಭಯವತ ಅಂತರಂಗದ ಶುದ್ಧಿಯತ ಆಸೆಯ ಬಲೆಯು ಇರುಳಲಿ ತೋಳಲಿಗ ಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯ ಬೆಳಗಿಸೋ ಆಸೆಯ ಬಲೆಯು ಇರುಳಲಿ ತೋಳಲಿಗ ಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ಜ್ಯೋತಿಯ ಬೆಳಗಿಸು ಅರುಣಾಚಲದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಂದ ಪುನೀತನೆ ಮುಕ್ತಿಯ ಪಥದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೆಸೋ ಗುರು ರಮಣ ಶಿವ ನೀ ತೋರು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಲವ ಗುರು ರಮಣ ಶಿವ ನೀ ತೋರು ನನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಒಲವ. ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀ ರಮಣಾಯ. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I will be presenting Kannada translation of Bhagavan's one of Bhagavan's works. ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭಯೇನು ಸರಳವೋ ಶ್ರದ್ಧೆಯಿಂದ ತಿಳಿಯ ಬರುವ ಜನರಿ ವಿರಳವೋ. ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭಯೇನು ಸರಳವೋ ಆತ್ಮವು ಅತಿ ದುರ್ಬಲನಿಗೂ ಸತ್ಯವಾದುದು ನೋಡೆ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿಯ ನೆಲ್ಲಿಕಾಯೆ ಮಿಥ್ಯವಾದುದೋ. ಆತ್ಮವು ಅತಿ ದುರ್ಬಲನಿಗೂ ಸತ್ಯವಾದುದು ನೋಡೆ ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿಯ ನೆಲ್ಲಿಕಾಯೆ ಮಿಥ್ಯವಾದುದೋ. ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ. ಆತ್ಮ ಒಂದೇ ಶಕ್ತ ಅದೇ ಸತ್ಯ ನೂತನ ಈ ದೇಹ ಲೋಕ ಅದರಿಂದಲೇ ಬಂದ ವಿಭ್ರಮ. ಆತ್ಮ ಒಂದೇ ಶಕ್ತ ಅದೇ ಸತ್ಯ ನೂತನ ಈ ದೇಹ ಲೋಕ ಅದರಿಂದಲೇ ಬಂದ ವಿಭ್ರಮ. ಭ್ರಮೆಯ ತೆರೆಯು ಕಳಚಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರಗಿದ ಘಳಿಗೆ, ಭ್ರಮೆಯ ತೆರೆಯು ಕಳಚಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕರಗಿದ ಘಳಿಗೆ, ಆತ್ಮ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಬೆಳಗುವನೋ ಹೃದಯದ ಒಳಗೆ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ, ಶ್ರದ್ಧೆಯಿಂದ ತಿಳಿಯ ಬರುವ ಜನರೇ ವಿರಳವೋ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ, ನಾನೇ ದೇಹ ಎನ್ನುವ ತಪ್ಪು ಸೂತ್ರವ ಹಿಡಿದು ಎನಿತು ಭಾವ ಜನಿಸಿಹವೋ ಅವುಗಳ ತಡೆದು, ನಾನೇ ದೇಹ ಎನ್ನುವ ತಪ್ಪು ಸೂತ್ರವ ಹಿಡಿದು ಎನಿತು ಭಾವ ಜನಿಸಿಹವೋ ಅವುಗಳ ತಡೆದು, ನಾನು ಯಾರು ಎನ್ನುವ ಶೋಧನೆ, ನಾನು ಯಾರು ಎನ್ನುವ ಶೋಧನೆ, ನಡೆಯೇ ಸದಾ ಮೂಡಿ ಬರುವ ಆತ್ಮ ಸೂರ್ಯನೇ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ, ಶ್ರದ್ಧೆಯಿಂದ ತಿಳಿಯ ಬರುವ ಜನರೇ ವಿರಳವೋ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ, ಆತ್ಮಜ್ಞಾನ ಎನಿತು ಸುಲಭ ಏನು ಸರಳವೋ. ನಮೋ ರಮಣ.
Namo Ramana. We move on to this part of the satsang where we have the self-enquiry practice led by Sri Dileep Simha ji. I request Dileep Simha ji to conduct the self-enquiry session.
Namo Ramana. Dhyaye Sharada Chandra Sundaramukam Tamraravindekshanam Bhaktabhishtavarabhaya Pradakaram Kaupinamotrojvalam Svatmanam Tarasanubhuti Vivasham Sarvanavadhyangakam Shrimantam Shri Ramanishwaram Guruvaram Yogasana Dhyasitam Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Dhyayet Shri Ramanishwaram Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yahamaham Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Pradivisha Manasa Swam Chindvata Majjatava Pavana Chalana Rodha Atmanishto Bhavatvam. Namo Ramana. We will commence the Atma Vichara by first listening and meditating on Bhagavan's Upadesham. I'll be reading his Upadesham from the book Guru Vachaka Kovai, from the chapter Meditation on the Truth. The topic is the greatness of renunciation. Verse 836. What is it that remains as impossible to renounce after all that can be renounced has been renounced? It is the harvest of bliss the surging flood, the reality of the self, shining in the heart, as that which cannot be renounced. What is it that remains as impossible to renounce, after all that can be renounced has been renounced? It is the harvest of bliss, the surging flood, the reality of the self, shining in the heart, as that which cannot be renounced. When we go about renouncing, there has to be something objective, and there has to be something which is a subject which goes on to say, I will renounce this particular object. So when all the objects are renounced, that which cannot be renounced will definitely remain. When we reach that stage, Bhagavan is saying here that when we reach that which cannot be renounced, that is the heart, that is the flood, that is the peace, surging flood of peace. It is the reality. It is the spiritual heart, and beyond which there is nothing much one can do. So it is very important to recognize this. Whenever there is anything objective that is still appearing, it could be a thought, it could be a concept, it could be very gross object, looking an anticipation for something. It could be like that, because we've been long habituated to experience something, to recognize something apart, constantly looking for it. And that is all nothing but the activity of the ego. It is only after the first person rises, the ego rises, Bhagavan says all the second and third person rise. So with both the first person, the second person, and the third person, Bhagavan says, they all rise and go away simultaneously. And we recognize this clearly in the dream. When I rise as an individual, I rise with all the things. Same in the waking. When I become an individual, with me the whole world and all these various mental modes, mind, intellect, ego, all things will rise, all divisions rise with it. And they all set back when the ego goes away, when the mind goes away. And we see that in the deep sleep. Every day, this natural truth is given to us by that abundant grace called the self, which, like a spider, webs out the whole creation and absorbs it back onto it. The only thing is, such a state is possible, such a state of not having anything apart and not being perturbed by not having anything apart, and yet one very much surviving it, one being there without knowing anything is possible, is something that we can experience every day by that abundant grace in the deep sleep. What Bhagavan is calling is to reach that thing through the inquiry of getting what is known as the consciously recognizing that none of these objective experiences is of any source of happiness, and therefore go on renouncing them. Then the pure consciousness shall alone remain. And when we reach that which cannot be renounced, we see that the pure consciousness is the heart of all the heart. It is the eye of all the eyes. All the things that we have seen was seen by it. It is the presence of all presence. All that we experience as existing came because of the presence of this truth. Therefore, it is the heart of heart. It is that truth where there is no division, and therefore it is the flood of peace. It is a flood of happiness. That is the self. And that cannot be renounced because there is nothing apart for it to be renounced. When we reach that state, that is when the ego has been completely renounced and one remains in one's own state, when there is no more divisions being the entity, the imaginary entity, which was creating the divisions, the ego, has been renounced. There is nothing one is proclaiming to say that I have renounced. So one simply remains in one's own pristine, natural state of being, pure being consciousness. And in that, all that has to be renounced has been renounced, says Bhagavan. And that is how the self is experienced, says Master over here. And that is exactly being the natural truth of our self. Because in the self, there is no more division, there is no separation, there is nothing to be renounced. Bhagavan's self-enquiry takes us and makes us recognize that natural truth, where no effort is required. Nothing needs to be known, nothing needs to be done. The truth is given to all of us so naturally. All that we need to do is just renounce this false idea of being an individual looking out for some experience. That's why Atma Gnana Yanita Sulabhavo, when we say that, Inito Saralabhavo, that's how simple and straightforward it is. It is the mind who goes on thinking, how could be it simple? How could it be so natural? That is the mind that we need to renounce. And when we keep on doing it, then the natural truth will be seen to be present naturally, effortlessly, and that alone was the reality. Therefore, the self-enquiry is the most direct path to recognizing that natural truth, that effortless state, or we can't even call it a state, that effortless presence which is naturally there. And for us to recognize it, we need to move away from these imaginary divisions. Therefore, Bhagavan has devised a beautiful enquiry. Whenever these divisions grab our attention, he goes on to ask, to whom is this? He wants us to ask, to whom is this? And the answer will come, to me. And when we inquire, who am I? The attention goes away from even the first person, who is the creation of all these divisions, to finding the reality of the first person. And when we dive looking for the reality with the inquiry, who am I? The grace takes us to the very source, to the truth, the natural truth. We may not be quite familiar, or the vasanas may be strong, which makes us move away from that natural truth. But with repeated practice, Bhagavan assures that the self, the natural truth alone shall remain and shine. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us practice self-enquiry the next 10 minutes. नमो भगवते श्री रमण
Namo Ramana. In this part of the satsang, we are meditating on the verses of Arunachala Navamani Malai written by Bhagavan Ramana, and we are reading from the translation and the commentary given to us by Sri G. Kameshwar. We were meditating on the third verse of Arunachala Navamani Malai, and this has been set in the Tilang Raga and Khandajati Triputatala by Srimati Sulochana Natarajan. அருணாச்சலத்திலுரு கருணாகர பரமன் அருணாரவிந்த பதமே அருணாச்சலத்திலுரு கருணாகர பரமன் அருணாரவிந்த பதமே பொருள் நாடு சுற்றுமோடு வருணாதி பற்றியுளம் அருணாடலற்ற நிதமும் பொருள் நாடு சுற்றுமோடு வருணாதி பற்றியுளம் அருணாடலற்ற நிதமும் தெருநாடுளத்தினினல் அருணாடி நிற்குமவர் இருள் நாசமுற்ற புவி மேல் தெருநாடுளத்தினினல் அருணாடி நிற்குமவர் இருள் நாசமுற்ற புவி மேல் அருணாருண கதிரின் அருணாளு சுக வருணாலயத்தில் இழிவார் அருணாருண கதிரின் அருணாளுமுற்று சுக வருணாலயத்தில் இழிவார் அருணாச்சலத்திலுரு கருணாகர பரமன் அருணாரவிந்த பதமே. The meaning of this verse is Arunachalatilu, that which has manifested in Arunachala, Karunakara Paraman, the Supreme God, who is most merciful, compassionate, Karunakara Paraman, Arunaravinda Padame, whose feet of red lotus hue, his feet is so red like the red lotus. Porul naade shutrumude. Porul means the goods or property. Nadu means land. And Shutramudu means family or relatives. Varunadi Patri Ulam, that is Varunadi Ulam Patri, that is along with the above, renouncing from one's heart. Ulam is heart, attachment to the color, race, etc. That is Varunam. Varunadi Patri. Marul Natal Atru Nidamum. Marul Natal. Is the delusion at every moment. That is Nidamum. Nityamum. Nidamum, every moment. Turning one's back to delusion, not seeking falseness. The marul is the falseness or the delusion. That is to seeking that illusion or delusion you shun it and you turn towards what is Terul Naad Ulattil, with a heart that is ever seeking clarity, that is seeking peace, that is seeking silence, that is seeking the grace, that is Nal Arul Nati Nirkumavar, those spiritually ripe seekers who stand seeking good, divine grace alone. Those who are seeking that is good, that is noble, that is divine, and that is grace alone. What will happen to them? Irul nasa mutru buvimel. That is, Irul is darkness, and that darkness, which is the spiritual ignorance, is completely nasham. Nasham is completely destroyed. Bhuvi male is when they are here in this earth, in this very life, living in this very world, with the darkness of spiritual ignorance completely destroyed. Te- Tarunaruna Kadirin, resembling the rays of the young, just rising sun. Arul Naalum Utra, receiving the rays of grace continuously. Sukha Varunalayatil Ilivar. In the Sukham is bliss. Varunalayatil means drowning in that ocean of bliss. They will rejoice, says Bhagavan in this verse. In the explanation, the Ji Kameshwarji is telling the outline of this verse is as follows. The advanced seekers who undistractedly seek the auspicious grace of the red lotus-like feet of Lord, who is an ocean of compassion. These seekers, shunning attachment to color, race, property, land, people, etc., turning their back to delusion, falseness of the worldly life, these seekers, having their hearts ever set on seeking clearness, purity alone, their spiritual ignorance is destroyed, and basking forever in the grace of God, which is like the rays of the rising sun, they drown, dissolve in the sea of happiness. The verse conveys the twin path of jnana, that is knowledge, and bhakti, devotion. In jnana, the verse outlines the viveka, discrimination that a seeker needs. The seeker should reject the delusion of object oriented outward worldliness and should constantly seek purity of heart. Also, the seeker should have be a deep vairagya, detachment, and renounce all attachment to the notion of I and mine. One should renounce all notion of identification with country, race, family, ordained duties, wealth, property, etc. In bhakti, the seeker should center his heart, mind totally on the red lotus like feet of Lord Arunachala. At this point of time, I remember a story from Bhagavatam. It is a story of one of the 24 gurus of Dattatreya Swami. We are all celebrating the Valentine's Day today, where the beloved, we enjoy the company of our beloved, and those who are in search of a beloved, they start their journey in that direction. So it is celebrated all around the world as the festival of love. But here is a story in Bhagavatam where a beautiful dasi, whose name was Pingala, and she had dressed up very beautifully. She was a dasi. So she used to offer herself, her body to the beloved, and from that she used to earn a living and also earn the joy, the company of that beloved. So she had dressed up very beautifully with beautiful silk garments and beautiful ornaments and nice makeup. to attract the customer, to attract a beloved to spend the night with her. So she was waiting in one posture, holding the frame of the door, and she was waiting for a beloved to come into her house. And many men were passing by in that street, but none of them entered the house. She could not find a beloved, and she was waiting. And at the dawn, the night had fled, and the sun was rising. At that moment, Pingala thought to herself, I have been waiting for a beloved to come from outside, but there is a beloved, Ramana, who is shining within my heart, who is waiting for me nidhamam all the time, instead of turning towards that beloved and losing myself in his embrace and becoming one with him. Instead of that, I have been seeking for a beloved outside. How foolish I am! So she thought and turned towards the heart. And heart is Arunachala. And Ramana here says there is one Karunakara Paraman in the Arunachala. Arunachalattiluru Karunakara Paraman. That beloved Ramana was shining within her, and she turned towards that Ramana. And at that moment, she became a jnani, and she was one of the guru of the Datreya Swami, which he tells the Raja, the Yadu Maharaja, who asks, who taught you this path of being in bliss? You don't have any possessions, you don't have any people, you don't have any kingdom to rule, you don't even have a place to stay. Oh, Dattatreya Swami, you are an avaduta. You are traveling here and there and sleeping on the ground, but you seem to be so happy. What is this secret? How is that you are rejoicing in this ocean of bliss? And he tells that he has been guided with these 24 gurus, and one of them is Pingala, who taught me that I should shun my outwardliness, the worldliness, to search for happiness outside, but instead to turn within and find that clarity, that joy, which is my own true nature. Bhagavan also says, and Sadhu Swami also, he repeats the same thing what Bhagavan says in one of the Varnams, Sahityam of the one of the Vachitteswaram of the Bilahari Varnam, where he says that people go around this Arunachala for various reasons. First, they come for fulfillment of their desires, to get some porul, get some object, or to get some land. On the way, there is this place, Durvasa Muni Ashrama. Usually, the people take some stones, and usually they place the stone in the form of a small home-like thing, and they light a lamp inside that home. And it is told that when somebody does that, then Durvasa Muni blesses them with building of their house, and their house building will happen without any obstacles. And one of our devotees also told, yes, when I did the same thing, and the house got built very beautifully. So it is people come for Porul Nadu, or some people will come. There's a huge this one the Jyotishi is telling them, go around Arunachal on this specific day, you may get married, or all your problems in the marriage may get resolved. So all these Porul Nadu and the Sutru, all these you will get by Arunachala's grace. But at one point of time, when one is doing worshipping God or doing sadhana, and when he comes to a point, God is giving me all the time desiring. God is so Karunakara Paraman. God Himself is so Karunakara Paraman. I should not love what God gives, but I should love what God Himself is. So when at that point, when the devotee, instead of asking for some desire to be fulfilled, when he turns only for the grace of God, then he becomes the mature seeker, which is described in this verse. And at that point of time, the self which is shining within, the God who is shining within, he himself manifests as the Guru. And that Guru gives the clarity. And he says, the happiness that you are searching for was never in the, the objects which you are seeking for. What you are seeking, you are already that. Turn towards your own true nature and understand who you are. Then you will understand that you are divine. There's no difference between the God, the self, and the Guru. They are one and the same. This truth you will understand is told by the Guru, who is the very self, who manifests in front of this advanced seekers who are only desiring for God. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gives one example of how mother takes care. The mother is cooking and doing some work in the kitchen, and to keep the child engaged, she will bring one new toy and give it to the child. And the child is playing with the toy until the child is playing with the toy. It is not it does not want mother. Mother can be doing the work. But after once it gets bored with the toy, the child starts crying. And the mother comes rushing. Oh, my child is calling me. Then she will give one more toy. And the child will start playing with that new toy. And it will get engaged and indulged in that new toy and is playing that new toy. And the mother keeps doing this. Whenever the child cries, she'll be giving new toy, one after the other. At one point of time, the child does not want any new toy. It only wants mother. When that point comes and it is crying for the mother and it does not get satisfied with any toy that the mother gives, then what does the mother do? The mother carries the baby and embraces the baby and showers her love to that baby. So we are also, God is giving us all these, the Porul, Nadu, and Sutru. So until we are indulged in those activities that God has given us, the gifts that God has given us, so we are all engaged in that. So we forget about the God. But when we understand none of these toys will give us eternal happiness, it only we get bored of it when we understand this, and when we turn towards the mother, then alone she will come and embrace us and take us to her state. So that will happen only when, without any distraction of or any other wants, only desires the self, then alone the Chinmayi, the mother, embraces and makes us one with her. This is the essence of this third verse of Arunachala Navamani Malai. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We continue the satsang with the meditation and sharing by Dr. Sarada on the verses of Ramana Ashtottara written by Vishwanath Swami.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana, we in this part of the satsang are meditating on Vishwanatha Swami's Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali, and we were meditating on the Nama Om Swaraje Namaha. And after that Nama, we get the Nama, the name Om Maharshaye Namaha. Now, this name Maharshi is what has been given to Bhagavan by Ganapati Muni. But we remembered biographically the coming of Ganapati Muni to Bhagavan when we dwelt on the Nama Om Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha. But after Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha, we have Viraja Dachalakritaye Namaha, Uddiptanayanaye Namaha, Purnaya Namaha, Rachitachala Tandavaya Namaha, Gambhiraya Namaha, Paramacharya Namaha, Suprasannaya Namaha, Abhayapradaya Namaha, Dakshinasya Nibhaya Namaha, Dakshinabhimukhaya Namaha, Swaraje Namaha, Maharshaye Namaha. And Maharshaye Namaha is followed by Bhagavate Namaha. So, Muni is coming, in a way, Vishwanatha Swami has dwelt on over here, one may say. Ramana has happened right in the beginning of the Ashtottara, so that Nama is not coming here. But earlier also he has said Paramacharya. Paramacharya, my Acharya's Acharya. It could also be that these are all the attributes which are given to Bhagavan. It is not necessarily biographical, but very clearly the name Maharshi was given to Bhagavan by Muni. So one may think that after Virupaksha Guhavasaya Namaha, Vishwanatha Swami has dwelt actually on the various attributes of Bhagavan before returning to the biographical allusion of Muni surrendering to Bhagavan. But what does the Nama Maharshi mean? Swaraje, we saw, is abiding in one's own true nature, being truly free, liberated. And then Maharshi. Maharshi is a great Rishi. Maharishi is Maharshi. And Muni, of course, said, this is not an ordinary sage. This is a great seer. Seer among seers. But who is a Rishi? A Rishi is a seer, one who can see truly, one who has a true vision. Another Nama will come in the Ashtottara, which is called Dirghadarshine Namaha, one who sees far, one who can see the future, one who has the vision of the distant future, one who understands the need of the future right away. But here we have Maharshi. Maharshi means the great seer. What does he see? He sees the self. He who sees the self alone sees. Because everyone else is actually not seeing. What everyone else is seeing is an objective world, a world twice removed from the truth, to say the least. Nandakumarji often refers to the fact that even the light of the sun, because it comes to us after a travel of several light years, is actually very much removed from the moment that light is being emitted. So it is the light is already past when we are seeing it. So we are not seeing what is actually existing. And physically, everything that we see is seen by that light. Everything that we see physically. So what happens is that cannot be the truth at all. How can it be the truth when what we are seeing physically is already dead and gone? The light is already into the past by the time we are seeing it. It cannot be the truth. And it is the same for our thoughts, for the perception. There is a delay. A thought arises before we become aware of it. So what we see is always that which is dead and gone, not which is there in the present. So the Maharshi is the only one, the Jivan Mukta is the only one who sees that which is, who sees the self, and therefore he is a true seer. Now, why Maharshi? All rishis are true seers, but there is a division even among jnanis. We hear of Brahmavit Vara, Brahmavit Varenya, Brahmavit Varishta, gradations apparently in jnana. And Bhagavan says that is from the perception of the onlooker, but seer among seers. Another devotee, Sri K.V. Subramaniam, said, all are giants. There are so many giants. Bhagavan, the Muni is a giant, Muruganar is a giant, and so many other such giants are there, devotees of Bhagavan. But Bhagavan stands out as the Everest among all. Even such high mountains, the Himalayan range consists of so many high mountains. Conquering any one of them is a great feat. But the Himalaya stands above all of them. Like that, there are so many rishis, and our land is blessed with many rishis. But here is a Maharishi, a sage among sages, a seer among seers, says Muni, and that is the Nama which Vishwanatha Swami has taken up for us to meditate on over here. It is for us to look into what is true seeing, what is true vision. Of course, Bhagavan says that he talks about the knowledge, the vision that is knowledge, the seeing that is knowledge. And he says in his Atma Vidya Kirtanam, if you don't know the self, if you have not seen the self, if you have not experienced the self, then what have you seen? What indeed have you seen? And this one, in one sense, all that we see is dead and gone. But even if we say it is dead and gone, is it at all real to begin with? Does it have an existence at all? Or is it a mere image like the snake in the rope? And if all this that we see is only a mere image in the mind, it has no reality at all, then what is it that we are seeing? It is only the one who is abiding in the self who sees the truth, and he does not see the illusion. Therefore, he is called Maharshi. And that when we worship Bhagavan as the true seer, the greatest among the true seers, and the seer is a visionary. He intuits the truth because he sees the truth alone. Everything in his demeanor, everything that he does, everything that he says springs from that same truth. So we find that all of Bhagavan's teachings, every word that Bhagavan has spoken is an expression, a pure expression of the awareness of the self. And that alone. So, Bhagavan's vision is the vision that all of us need to seek. So, it is the true vision which we need to get back to. The vision that is true vision and the vision that is of the truth as well, of our true nature. So, Vishwanatha Swami says, Dakshinasya Nibhaya Namaha, Dakshinabhimukhaya Namaha, Swaraje Namaha, Maharshaye Namaha. So he is like Dakshinamurti, he is facing southward or he is facing towards the right, which is the space of the spiritual heart, and abiding in his own true state. Because he is a Maharshi, he can see the truth for what it is. He can see the utter meaninglessness of everything other than the self. So his attention is always on the self and the self alone, thus becoming a beacon light for all of us to go ahead on those very footprints which Bhagavan has left while walking ahead in this very difficult inner terrain. He has left a blazing path being a Maharshi. We can also see that Muni and his disciples, all of them questioned Bhagavan, and the answers have been recorded by Muni with the questions in Sanskrit as Ramana Gita in 18 chapters. And in many places, Muni himself asks Bhagavan certain doubts, certain clarifications, which may or may not be appearing to be at least directly his doubts in his sadhana. Because very often he says, oh, I had this doubt, or I had another doubt. And the crux is that Muni wanted Bhagavan's answers for all spiritual questions. So either he himself has asked or he has given opportunities for Karshni, Yoganatha, V.Radha, Vaidarbha, and others among his devotees to ask questions of Bhagavan. Because the answers which are got from Bhagavan are refreshingly new and direct. And thereby they forge a new path for us. If we take the 3rd chapter, Daivarata says, which is the most important duty of mankind? Which is the most important duty of the individual? You tell me one, O Bhagavan, ekam nirdharya Bhagavan. Why? Because you are the Maharshi. You are the greatest of seers. So if an answer comes from you, it is completely valid. So you give me the path of the highest duty. You give me the path of compassion. So every question, every doubt on the path is expressed in order to get the stamp of authority of Maharshi Ramana on all those answers, thereby giving us a clear and clearer and clearest picture of the crux of Bhagavan's teachings. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We have the chanting of Arunachala Aksharamanamalai, a few verses by Srimati V.Radha.
Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. முட்டையடித்தன்னை வெட்ட வெளியில் நீ நட்டமாடின என் அருணாச்சலம். மோகம் தவிர்த்தும் உன் மோகம் வைத்தும் என் மோகம் தீராயேன் அருணாச்சலம். மௌனியாய் கற்போல் மலராதிருந்தால் மௌனமிதாமோ அருணாச்சலம். எவனின் வாயில் மண்ணினையட்டி என் பிழை பொழித்த தருணாச்சலாம். யாரும் அறியாதன் மதியினை மருட்டி அவர் கொள்ளை கொண்ட தருணாச்சலாம். ரமணன் என்றுரைத்தேன் ரோஷம் கொள்ளாதேனை ரமித்திட செய்யவா அருணாச்சலாம். ராப்பகலில்லா வெறுவெளி வீட்டில் ரமித்திடுவோம் வா அருணாச்சலாம். லட்சியம் வைத்தருள் அஸ்திரம் விட்டென்னை பக்ஷித்தாய் பிராணனோடு அருணாச்சலாம். லாப நீக பர லாபமில் என்னையுற்று லாபம் என்றுற்றனை அருணாச்சலாம். வரும்படி சொல்லில்லை வந்தென் படியள வருந்திடும் தலை விதி அருணாச்சலாம். வாவென்றகம் புக்கும் வாழ்வருள் அன்று என் வாழ்விழுந்தேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலாம். விட்டிடில் கஷ்டமா விட்டிடாதுனை உயிர் விட்டிட அருள் புரி அருணாச்சலாம். அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. 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 அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி. அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
Conclude today's satsang with the offering of Ashtottara puja by Sri Dileep Simha ji at his house altar, and the chanting of the Ashtottara will be done by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, and followed by Uma Sripathy, and the Arati song will be sung by myself, Ujwal Jagadeesh.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावली अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्मिमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासे नमः श्रेण जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्ड संविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगदितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोण्णशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः. ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः. ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः. ॐ सवित्रे नमः. ॐ स्थिराय नमः. ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः. ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः. ॐ चन्द्रिकासितः शुश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः। ॐ श्रुतवाक्यां समासीनाय नमः। ॐ शूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः। ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः। ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः। ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः। ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः। ॐ विराजतचलाकृतये नमः। ॐ बुद्धिज्जनयनाय नमः। ॐ पूर्णाय नमः। ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः। ॐ गम्भीराय नमः। ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः। ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः। ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः। ॐ धीराय नमः। ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः। ॐ स्वराजे नमः। ॐ महर्षये नमः। ॐ भगवते नमः। ॐ ईड्याय नमः।
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः। ॐ विमलाय नमः। ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः। ॐ आप्ताय नमः। ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः। ॐ समदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः। ॐ सत्याय नमः। ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः। ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः। ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः। ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः। ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः। ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूत स्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसाराधिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ मृच्छान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ आर्धविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमणभगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनापूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदम् लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संगिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्द पुष्ट परम महर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡು ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೂಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಗಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ नमो महर्षि बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
जय